Something that we want to talk about is just like the translating the idea of brick and mortar to online. Again, both Albert and I actually have been a brick and mortar teacher before. I've taught 6 years in the brick and mortar school system, and then transitioning to online. So we want to share our ideas of differences that we saw. So the type of math classrooms that we actually get here, we actually do offer a flipped classroom. We do have a non-flipped and a flipped, but I do want to talk about a flipped classroom and its advantages in here. We actually, so a flipped classroom, for people that don't know, is a classroom where instead of doing the homework at home, where all the work is, and an online, at the part where we gather as class as a lecture where we learn the lesson, we kind of flip it, the whole idea of it. Well, we offer online videos taught by the teachers, we offer resources, we offer textbooks, we offer all these things where they're able to get the topics at home, take notes at their own pace. If they need a study guide, a resource to help them take notes, we offer those. And when they come into the classroom, we ask, they are supposed to be prepared. And in the class, that's when we start offering the work. That's when we do work together. We break off into groups a lot of times. We have teacher-led discussions, student-led discussions about the work. And nothing really is about learning new material, but about really strengthening and fortifying the materials we learned at home. If there's a concept that they didn't really understand at home, we can address it there in the flipped classroom. But that's the whole idea, and we do that with a lot of our advanced classes from pre-calculus up. We even do it with calculus, which a lot of people are like, oh, a flipped calculus classroom. So it's kind of ridiculous. But some advantages that we do see from there is that a lot of the students learn differently, and especially when offered online, with the online medium, they get distracted, you look at different things, and you really want to get the content across. So if we offer that whole flipped idea where they can learn at home, and they want to do that, and they want to take that work to them at class, in class, they're doing a lot of the active participations, and so they have nowhere to hide. They're actually talking versus the teacher just talking. So there's a really big advantage on that part. We do offer 2 90-minute live sessions per week in our school. Sometimes other schools offer more. We understand that. Sometimes they offer asynchronous. But one thing that we really found is that if we really are going to simulate the idea of a synchronous classroom, that we do need those live sessions to be part of our school. And that whole 90 minutes that we offer, we start with the whole introduction of what's happening. We go through our lesson, if it's flipped or not, and then we end what we need to do. So we meet with our class twice a week, and we simulate that idea. So making it just as similar as a synchronous classroom as to a brick and mortar as possible. And another thing that we really do want to emphasize is the idea of problem solving and not regurgitation. I know that's really hard in the beginning with a lot of the elementary school math, but if we really emphasize on the problem solving, it kind of gets rid of a lot of the cheating that we get, and just the copying pasting that you can get from online learning, because you can technically Google all the answers. Like I can go to Wolfram or Wolfram or the Mathematica classes and all those things. And I tell them that students are able to use it, but if they can learn from it and get the idea of why it's happening, what the problem is doing, and how to actually solve it versus just telling me the answer, emphasizing the problem solving really gets rid of a lot of the issues of the online learning with the math part.
It also adds to, I mean, I focus on problem solving and allowing students to take different approaches. Like for instance, we had a geometry problem about finding finding the altitude of the altitude drawn to a hypotenuse, and most geometry classes will take that through like similar right triangles and use proportions. or geometric means. But we ended up coming up with like 3 different ways. Like we have one student who really likes to do coordinate plane stuff, and so he came up with lines, and we discussed each of those, right? We discussed like pros and cons about doing it this way versus that way, right? Because if you have it just took a little bit longer, but we all ended up with the right answer, right? And we actually had 3 columns set up, so you could see this is just one student's approach, this is another student's approach, and this is a third student's approach. And so it is important for that student to see like that he has choices, right? It's not just about memorizing a formula and going forward from that.
So, all right, and then another big thing that we get asked a lot about, and that I could see have a lot of issues, is the assessment portion. Assessments, as a math teacher, we are burdened with a lot of assessments, whether you're elementary all the way through high school. It's all about like how much math is that student learning, and how do we really get that, and how does it really translate to the online portion. So the first thing that I do want to cover is that we use a lot of formative assessments during our classes, and I think it's really important to use and to keep utilizing those formative assessments that you use at a brick and mortar here on the online. Like if you use Zoom, for example, Zoom offers online quick polls. You can create a poll. There's also other websites that creates polls for you, and they're able to do that. And you can ask questions from anywhere from a specific math question to something that is just like, what is your grasp of this general topic? Do you feel like you're comfortable with that? So those are really useful, and you can use it as a you could check if they're all answering, or you can make it anonymous. I do a lot of end of class questions where they can scale 1 through 5. I do a lot of self-assessments, but one of the big things I do want to really emphasize that is that there is a lot of, because of the online, one of the advantageous part of it is that they're able to use private chats or private mediums to converse with the teacher. A lot of students don't feel comfortable in a brick and mortar where they don't want to say, hey, I don't understand this question. I know we encourage students to say that, but sometimes we don't really get them out of it. We use the idea, like, for example, what we're doing now, we can actually make that into a private chat, or they can Teams us or email us, and they can say, hey, I don't understand this topic, or on a scale of 1 through 5, I have a 1. But they can do it privately, and they give us that information, and I'm able to reevaluate the lesson, or redo the lesson, or answer that question that they want in a more private settings, to give them voice, even though they're not really voicing out in front of all their students. And I know that's a really big thing for students. So utilizing that private chat. Summative assessments, we do use that, and that's another touchy subject that we go all through. Math, again, we use summative assessments all the time after every unit. What we use here at Davidson is that we use ours based off the LMS, the Blackboard, but we encourage using the LMS to distribute the exam, and we can either have it through PDF or Word document, LMS based, meaning that the LMS or the learning mechanism they might have a test format. Google Forms offers a way to create tests that way, or surveys. I've seen teachers use SurveyMonkey before. I use MathXL or iExcel, and they have a summative assessment portion that you create. We also offer oral exams. They can record themselves on Zoom or Screencastify or anything of that sorts, and then submit it to us. VoiceThread also offers the same thing. But we do, with the idea of summative assessments, cheating on assessments is a really big thing that we get as math teachers. So
yeah, I'll talk a little bit about this. When there was an issue about how can you make it fair for all students, and we had tried using other online proctoring services. Currently we use HonorLock, and I think initially when you have something where students are being monitored during tests. There's always a little bit of pushback, but what we found is that it's been a very positive response overall from students, because HonorLock in particular does like a proactive intervention, right? Like if, for instance, like if a student is talking to Alexa, right, it picks it up, and like the proctor will actually come on camera and ask the student not to interact with like the home devices. And it's a little bit better, I think, and a little bit more, you know, because some of our students are fairly young and they don't know exactly what's allowed and what's not allowed. And it's not a violation of like our honor code to, you know, say like, hey, Alexa, play me some music. But, you know, to hear those lessons before it becomes a larger issue. It is definitely a necessary thing for students to feel like everyone is has like an equitable test environment. And HonorLock's been a very positive thing for us. So.
Oh, yeah. I'll answer that question live. So Jennifer asked, in the 5 years that we've been doing this, has there been any security concerns with the third-party programs like Zoom? With Zoom itself, we really haven't experienced any security issues at all. We don't really post any of our information in a public place. So a lot of our information, a lot of our chat rooms, and a lot of our things are actually private to us and encrypted. So it's really private for all of those and other third-party programs so that we use, such as HonorLock. There really hasn't really, there have been some technical issues, but nothing when it comes to other security risks on that part.
Yeah, oh, sorry, Albert. I just want to jump in real quick and say we've been doing Zoom for several years. We were using online video conferencing through Adobe Connect before that. Part of my responsibility as the director is to review the privacy policies of these organizations before we sign any agreements with them. So I would encourage you to do that as well, particularly if an organization doesn't have a ton of experience working in the K-12 spectrum, which Zoom did not have 3 years ago. So we have a unique privacy policy that we negotiated with them to make sure that it was compliant with federal laws. And we've also done best practices for Zoom for years. So a lot of the problems that you saw happen earlier was because people were publicly posting their Zoom links and said, hey, I'm having a private meeting, but I'm going to post a link on social media for all my students to come join. And that's not something that we would do. Students actually have to sign into our platform before they can access it. They have to be verified on the system before they can even get in. So there's a lot of security protocols that if you know what you're doing and you put things in place thoughtfully, you'll be able to keep students safe.